Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of From the Studio. I'm your host, Corey Riggs, coming to you from our MC22 studios here in Springfield, and so thankful that you're joining us. It's been 1 week since we taped our first episode, and unfortunately, the world is still pretty upside down in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic. Our kids are adjusting to online coursework instead of being in school. There's no sporting events to go to, no movie theaters open to try and enjoy a 2-hour action-packed escape from the real world. But we are still here, hunkered down, and we hope you are too. It can't be said enough, folks, that you only should go out if you absolutely have to right now. That truly is the best thing we can all do to do our part to help flatten the curve. With that being said, let's get to today's show. Our first guest is going to tell you about what is going on across the state, specifically at the Capitol in Jefferson City, to help Missourians who need it most right now. I will be joined by Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe. Then we'll shift our focus back to what is normally our distraction from the seriousness of the world and talk sports with our good friend from Fox Sports Midwest in St. Louis, Scott Warman. If you want to reach out to us to give us topics or guests you'd like to see on the show, hit us up on Twitter at FromTheStudio22. We would love to hear from you. We'll have new polls up on Twitter this week, as well as announcements of upcoming guests, so you can send in your questions for them if you like. Stay tuned. Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe joins us from the studio after this.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Welcome back to From the Studio. Our guest now is a native St. Louisan and a gentleman who was appointed to his current post back in June of 2018. Our guest is Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe. Sir, thank you for taking the time to visit with us today.
Corey, thanks for having me on today. Happy to be here with you.
Well, it is our pleasure. First and foremost, I'm curious, what is a day like in the life of the Lieutenant Governor whose state and country is in the wake of a pandemic right now? How many conference calls, meetings are you being pulled into right now?
My life is one long conference call, it seems like these days. Obviously, it's a lot of phone work because we're all avoiding and adhering to the social distancing guidelines that everyone is trying to follow. And so it's a lot of phone time. That's what I spend my life on the phone these days.
Well, the governor had a big announcement and put into effect a statewide stay-at-home order that went into effect at 12:01 a.m. Monday morning. We're just a little bit of time into that. What is the initial response that you're getting from the people you're in contact with around the state when so many of the cities already, St. Louis, Kansas City, Springfield, where I am currently, had already enacted stay-at-home orders?
Well, it's a little bit mixed, as you can imagine, and I deal with my counterparts in other states. When you get into rural parts of our country, parts of rural Missouri, I don't know that people believe this is something that will affect them as great, but certainly it's the way to bend the curve, slow the curve. Those are all new sayings in our lives now, is to get everybody involved. And Governor Parson took this very seriously. He watched the data. He listened to the experts on what he thought was the right thing to do for our state. And at the end of the day, as I talk to folks all over the state, I remind them that one of the things we've got to remember, if this were to hit a really bad path, if many people start getting affected, we have to be sensitive to the pressure on our members. Obviously, St. Louis, Kansas City, Columbia, Springfield would be the larger systems. But the fact of the matter is Rolla, Missouri, Cape Girardeau all have health systems that rural Missourians might end up having to come to if this were to spread at an uncontrollable pace. So I think doing the right thing, the governor took all the data into account, had lots of conversations with national leaders and other governors across the state, and thought it would be best for all Missourians to not only stay home, just to stay safe.
Well, I know there's no upside in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, but it's hard times that sometime allow for people to really step up. I know there have been some Missouri businesses that have really stepped up in the wake of this pandemic to try and help their fellow Missourians?
Yeah, Corey, it's been inspiring. I can't tell you. Some of the stories will bring a tear to people's eyes. They're so emotional at what's happening. But you know, individuals and companies all across this state are stepping up to do amazing things, and we call it Missouri greatness. It's just been an incredible process, and that's largely what I've been involved in day to day. As many Missourians may or may not know, we have a program called Buy Missouri that then Lieutenant Governor Mike Parsons started before he became governor, and I took it over. We have 300 Buy Missouri companies, and so our first step was to work with those companies and find out what it is that they can do to help, mainly with PPE supplies. We're finding that there's a lot of companies in Missouri that can alter their manufacturing some to help with that. And Corey, I've got to tell you, every phone call I make, up including through today's interview, the calls I was on just a few minutes ago, I have yet to have somebody tell me no. Everybody you talk to, whether it's an individual or company owner, say, what can I do? How can I help? What do we need to get done? And when I say we need, 10,000 4-ounce plastic bottles for a whiskey manufacturer to convert their process into making hand sanitizer, the answer I get on the phone is do you want white caps or black caps? We'll have them to you tomorrow. When I call the label company in St. Louis and say, we need labels for these hand sanitizers, obviously this isn't anything we're going to sell, by the way. These are sanitizers that are going to public officials, mainly police and fire. You still have to have a label, right? You have to have some things on there to tell you what to do. You call the label company, no problem. We'll start printing them tomorrow. You call anybody you talk to in the process, Rala S&T. I talked to the Dean of Engineering and said, we might need some help on some basic off-the-shelf, literally things you can get at a hardware store or Lowe's to fill these bottles and do stuff. No problem. I'll get right on it. I mean, it's just been, I've got dozens of stories like that that's been heartwarming, and people are stepping up to the plate and they're doing their part. And I just can't thank Missourians enough for wanting to be involved in this crisis, because they are just absolutely hitting it out of the park.
Lieutenant Governor, I know since your time in office, you have always been very focused on education in the state of Missouri, wanting every child in the state of Missouri to have an opportunity to world-class education. How do you feel the school districts are doing right now with the online and distance learning that they're having to implement at the high school level, the middle school level, all the way down to the elementary school level?
Well, let me tell you something as a parent of 4. Teachers are getting all new love and respect after this in-home process, because moms and dads, friends of ours, people I just meet, talk to on the phone each day, say, man, I didn't know how hard a teacher's job was. So first of all, thank you to our teachers. I tell people all the time, one of the reasons I say that about kids getting a world-class education is because teachers are who saved my life. I mean, those are the people when I was kind of running astray. I went to a Catholic grade school with nuns. They weren't afraid to straighten you out in a quick hurry. So teachers saved many of us. But to answer your question, I have a lot of conversations with Department of Secondary Education, DESE we call it. Many conversations with them, conversations with school districts. They're stepping up to the plate as well. Teachers are designing curriculum that they can share online, that they can get emailed out to various students. There's resources out there like K12.com, which is an online educational service that they've opened up certain segments of their curriculum for free, as long as the local school district is okay with that. So there's multiple people stepping up to the challenge. Our biggest problem has been, internet access, because you can have all the distance learning you want, but if somebody can't get online, that's a problem. And so just recently, we through our Department of Economic Development, we have an internet access czar, if you will, who has been working on high-speed internet around the state previous to this. And he's making great inroads with service providers on wireless hotspots and different things that we can get set up in rural and urban America. Many schools are sending iPads or tablets home with their students so they can help. And then teachers are thinking outside of the box. I know somebody in urban St. Louis who is designing plans and then leaving them in locations around the neighborhood safely so people can come pick those up at kind of drop locations. So A combination of the school districts and teachers staying involved, the parents understanding what they have to do, and then the online resources has made it challenging, but kids are still studying. I see my kids on their laptop all day long in 2 different rooms. They're getting assignments, they're taking tests, they have things due, and so it's not the greatest environment, but we are pushing forward, and it's an important piece to get done.
Yep, I have a 14-year-old at home that I am trying to help navigate this as well, and it is difficult, but I think the teachers are doing an incredible job getting the content out to these kids, so it's not just stay at home and play video games all day. The cycle of learning continues. Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe is our guest currently. Lieutenant Governor, we've got time for one more question. You mentioned earlier flattening the curve, which is a new term in our vernacular. As we get to that point and Missouri gets over the hump and we start to get back to some semblance of normalcy here in the Show Me state, everyone knows that the unemployment numbers have skyrocketed across the country. What are the folks in the state of Missouri going to do to help the unemployed here as so many people have lost their jobs in the wake of COVID-19?
Well, yeah, it's obviously a scary question. Our Division of Labor took more unemployment calls one day last week than they did in the entire previous year. So when you put that in perspective, it's massive. But a couple of things I would say. I know people are frustrated trying to get through to the Department of Labor, but we've added 100 people to the staff there on our call centers, and we're getting through it. We will get through it. We will get back to people. We also have employers who are keeping a lot of people on their staff, are finding other things for them to do, or quite frankly, giving them very generous benefits to, work from home or do something like that. I would encourage any employer who hasn't checked it out with the SBA in their local bank or credit union, that paycheck protection bill that the feds passed just a week ago, literally. It went into effect last Friday. I am telling you, I'm hearing from employers all over the state how easy that process was and how quickly they got approved, and they only get the money if they agree to pay their employees. So that's good for the employees. It's good for the economy to keep them paid, and it is the federal money getting into our state and our market. I would encourage people to take advantage of that the best they can. And last but not least, to your question, today we should finalize, and we'll be announcing very soon, that we have a group of individuals from all over the state that represent about every industry you can think of, and we'll be starting to produce some kind of guidelines on what Missourians and businesses can do as we come out of this. The good Lord willing, and social distancing and staying at home and following the guidelines, we will come out of this. And as Missourians, we're going to come out way better than we went into it. We're going to have a better appreciation for teachers, for each other, for healthcare workers, for frontline people like police and fire. We're going to come out better than we ever have been before. And we're going to try to give some paths and steps to those, whether you're in business or an employee looking for a job, on how to get back into life and get back into the swing of things and get this economy going again. Because I honestly believe we are the Show Me state. We're going to show the world how it's done.
Lieutenant Governor, thank you so much for the time. Thank you for what you're doing for the state of Missouri. We appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to be on. I appreciate you getting the word out to people.
My pleasure. Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe of the great state of Missouri joining us here on From the Studio. We'll be back in just a minute.
Hi, I'm Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe. It's an honor to advocate for Missouri's seniors and veterans, those who have been contributing to our state and nation for generations. Generally, people are good and can be trusted, but in challenging times, some will try to take advantage of our most vulnerable, including seniors and veterans. If you're suspicious, contact our office, ltgov.mo.gov, or Attorney General Eric Schmidt, ago.mo.gov. Join me in protecting those who have helped make our state great.
Welcome back to From the Studio here on MC22. Corey Riggs, joined now by our good friend from St. Louis, who covers both the St. Louis Cardinals and the St. Louis Blues on Fox Sports Midwest, along with being one of the many talented voices of the Missouri Valley Conference. It's Scott Warman. Scotty, how are you doing, my friend?
Corey, I'm doing great. I don't know about talented, but thank you very much.
Well, it's been a long time since you and I used to spend our time kicking around the Valley Road, following the Southern Illinois Salukis around, but those were good times, man.
They were. We had excellent times, especially the road trip. I believe it was to Western Kentucky when all of us took the road trip back, which was very interesting. And remember, you were driving, if memory serves me right, and we had the GPS, and we were actually, after the game, we went to, I believe it was Hardee's, memory serves me right.
Yeah.
And so we were just slap happy and having fun, and Corey decided to just kind of go in circles. And the GPS, come on, turn left, turn right, turn left. You remember that?
I do, because there is no GPS that I haven't been able to get lost using, because I have no sense of direction whatsoever. But it was always a good time. I miss that to a certain extent. And right now, everybody misses sports in general. You know, speaking of the Missouri Valley Conference, they were able to get the men's tournament in, but hoops in the Heartland, just another one of the coronavirus victims this year.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You know, I was telling our good friend Art Haynes on his radio show just about a week ago, Corey, about the circumstances. And the last event I did was on March 11th. The Blues actually had a game in Anaheim. It was a West Coast game, and it was actually the game that they had to make up. Remember, back in February, the Blues had the defenseman Jay Goldmeister, who had that hard episode, and that was just a crazy thing, needless to say. And thank God Jay is okay. That's the most important part, but that was kind of the makeup game, if you will. So it was a short night for me after we got done with the post-game show in our studios here in St. Louis after the Blues Anaheim Ducks game. Took a nap, essentially, got up early in the morning, and then made my trek to the Quad Cities area, because myself and Laura Leonard, who I'm sure a lot of Missouri State fans know, has been a long-time analyst for women's basketball in the Missouri Valley Conference. So we were supposed to tape a preview show, and then our first game was going to be at 4 o'clock. I made a phone call at 10 o'clock to Mike Kern, one of the many great people that work at the Missouri Valley Conference, one of the senior associate commissioners. And Colonel told me, he goes, look, it looks like we're going to still go with this. He said, but it looks like we're going to have it just to probably about 100 tickets per team, just to be on the safe side. I said, well, I'm about an hour out, and where our hotel is, it's basically next door to the Tax Slayers Center, Corey. Mm-hmm. And so I got there and got in my room, got ready, and went across the street. By the time I got over there, it was about 11:30 or so. And I remember sitting there. Illinois State was actually practicing. Patty Viverito, of course, everyone knows Patty, the great senior associate commissioner of the Missouri Valley Conference. She comes over, and there's a couple of other members of the conference sitting there, and she just said that we're not going to have the tournament. My 10 plus years of doing women's basketball, the people like Mike Kern, Jack Watkins, as I mentioned, Patty Viverito, Doug Elgin, among others, who have been in the Valley near or over 30 years, never saw women's basketball at the level that we were at this year. And Patty I hugged her, and she gave me a hug because I felt so sorry for her, because legitimately Drake is still a very good basketball team. And we had an outside chance, I say we, the Valley, had an outside chance for the first time in the history of women's basketball, getting 3 teams in.
Scott, what's harder right now on St. Louis sports fans? The stoppage midway through the season, heading into the postseason for the NHL, with the St. Louis Blues being the defending Stanley Cup champions, or the complete lack of the start of the baseball season? What do you think's hurting more right now?
Both. I have to be honest. I mean, you have to think that the Blues might have a very good chance of making a run. They've proven all the naysayers wrong with the quote-unquote Stanley Cup hangover, and they haven't had their best scorer in Vladimir Tarasenko throughout most of the season, and he was getting ready. He was within a week or two of joining the team, which was already had the second best record in all the NHL. Oh, by the way, the Boston Bruins, the team the Blues beat in the Stanley Cup Finals, they had the best or the most points in all of the NHL. The Blues were primed, and they still may be primed to potentially defend their cup and win a second championship. As far as baseball is concerned, I'm Corey, most people in Springfield, mostly Cardinal fans. I know there are great Royals fans down in Springfield and Southwest Missouri, but the AA team is down there. Disappointed. No matter what you look at, baseball is just, it's something different here in St. Louis. This is not me, because I grew up here in St. Louis. It's people that have come here, players that come from other teams, enjoy coming here. And opening day, just to kind of put it in perspective, and I'm going to do this from a Fox Sports Midwest perspective, if you don't mind, Corey, is the fact that opening day here in St. Louis was on 2nd of April, that Thursday. The Baltimore Orioles, the former St. Louis Browns, were in town to open the season at Busch Stadium against the Cardinals. And oh, by the way, after that game, down 7 blocks on 14th and Clark, it was the Blues and the Boston Bruins making their only visit to St. Louis. We were going to have a huge, and I mean a huge day, not only here in St. Louis, but personally for all of us at Fox Sports Midwest. We were so pumped up. Not only have the home opener, which is a huge day, of course, the pregame festivities is our good friend Danny Mack does such a great job over the many years of showing you and giving you all the inside of all the Hall of Famers that were coming to town. In fact, I just saw a story in the Post-Dispatch that it looked like Bob Gibson, who is beating cancer right now. This shouldn't surprise us, but he had a bad case of cancer, Corey, was going to be among those there at opening day, which I saw that story from a Hall of Fame writer, Rick Hummel, about a week ago, and it made me feel good that Gibby is doing so well. But we had all that, and then we had the big build-up to this hockey game between the Blues and the Bruins, the first visit since last June, Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Finals. Well, that's all going by the wayside. But I think now most people taking things into perspective, we're itching to get sports back here in St. Louis. And I think once we start rolling again, I truly believe we'll start rolling again. People will be so excited, no matter how the outcome is, people will be so excited to watch their teams. We may, and I emphasize may, because I don't think anybody really knows, because there's a lot of different people I talk to, Corey, a lot of different possibilities as far as how you start up the baseball season. A lot of rumors that maybe it starts in Arizona without fans. You may start in St. Louis without any fans, and other cities as well. That's a possibility. But just to see live sports, I think is huge. And I know earlier in the week, the PGA made the announcement that they're going to start some of the golf tournaments without any fans. I think it's a good move. A, B, I think people will love to just watch the PGA. Anything live, I think people will be really excited about. But I think a lot of people will be really excited to see the Cardinals. And I think you'll still see the Blues because more than anything else, there's a lot to play for, not only for the league, but also the Players Association to just wipe out a whole rest of the hockey season, especially the most important part, Corey, as we all know, the second season in the NHL and to crown a Stanley Cup champion.
Scotty, one final question for you. You talk about getting sports back. It's important for the psyche of the nation, but it's also important to put a group of people back to work right now. I don't think the average public understands the announcers, the camera operators, the instant replay operators, the font people, all that have been put out of work. These are not salaried people. These aren't people that have even necessarily contracts. They're just people that get paid per game to do a job, whether it's Fox Sports Midwest, ESPN, or Mediacom.
Absolutely. You know, it's funny. You and I talked about this on the phone, Corey, before doing this interview. And in fact, I talked to one of our camera people that's been around for decades. And it's obviously uncharted territory. But, even when I've been walking my dog a lot besides doing exercise, because that's about all you can do except for stuff around the house. And my neighbors, my friends, they don't understand that we're not salaried personnel. And look, I don't want to put myself or any of my brothers or sisters that are camera operators or videotape people or producers, directors, or whatever for our broadcast on Fox Sports Midwest, because there are a lot of people getting furloughed out there no matter what the job is. There are restaurants, as we all know, completely closed or just doing carryout. So we're all battling this and fighting through this. And again, I want to be positive. I really believe that we all stick together, we'll get through this. But yes, you're right, Corey. I mean, there's a lot of us, that we're not salaried personnel. Every game that you see, whether it's us on the actual TV or those that are behind the camera doing the audio or whatever, or in the truck, the producer, director, the technical director, the bug operator, graphics person, replay, whatever, nobody's getting paid right now unless they can find some sort of side job. So everybody's just kind of sitting tight and kind of hoping for the best that, we get back to this sooner rather than later. I'm going to add something too, Corey, and I know you would appreciate this. I should have mentioned this to you. People really don't understand, even my friends, the lifelong friends, don't understand what actually goes into a broadcast. You and I do, because we've worked together and we've done this for such a long period of time. Yeah. But if you have time, and most people have some time, if you go to the St. Louis Blues website and you go to some of their archives, and it's back, I believe, in January, Trevor Nickerson, who runs the video department over there, and I work with him on the radio side. And Trevor's just an amazing, talented young man. But if you want to see part of the process of what goes into an actual broadcast. Go to stlouisblues.com, the Blues website, and take a look at the archives in the video section, and you'll see it there. And it shows how early in the day, even before the morning skate at 10:30 for a home game, the Blues played Edmonton right before Christmas, how much the process goes, not just for us broadcasters, but especially the behind the scenes people that are there throughout the whole day and night. I mean, we really start at 9 o'clock in the morning at least, and it's not over until I say goodbye in the post game show, like around 10:30 at night. Obviously, a little bit later for baseball, but it's a really good production, Corey. I think you really enjoy it as well, just to watch the behind the scenes. And I know the response from social media when it was put up not only by us on Fox Sports Midwest, but by the St. Louis Blues, a lot of people responded and go, "Man, we didn't realize how much goes into an actual broadcast." It really is cool. And like I said, I know you feel the same way too. All of our friends that we work with, whether it's here in St. Louis, you and I know your friends in Springfield or Kansas City that we work with or wherever. I really am hopeful that we can all get back to work here and everybody can go back and watch some baseball and hockey or basketball or golf or whatever you enjoy.
Yeah, we hope to see you back on TV real soon, man. It's good to catch up with you. We'll talk to you again soon, okay?
Sounds great, Corey. Thank you so much, buddy.
Thank you. Scott Warman joining us from St. Louis. We'll be back and wrap up from the studio after this.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Well, that'll just about do it for this episode of From the Studio. At the end of each show, we're going to do our best to be interactive with you, our viewers, by using Twitter and other platforms. For now, you can follow this show on Twitter at FromTheStudio22, or you can give me a follow at Corey Riggs TV. Please feel free to send us questions, guest or topic ideas, take part in our online polls, and more. We put up our first poll last week and asked you what kind of guests would you like to see on this show. We didn't get a landslide of votes at our first try at this, but of the votes we did get, it was lopsided toward more sports interviews, 78% to be exact. So we'll start working on that for the next show. We also asked, since so many of you are working from home right now, to send us a picture of your at-home workspace, and I was impressed. At Dad 2 Twin Girls sent us a nice picture. His new workspace has a window view. We got another picture from our friend Shane Freeby of his quarantine workspace, and it comes equipped with a quiet sign, I guess for when the kids get a little too loud. Thanks for sending those in. A big thank you goes out to the Lieutenant Governor, Mike Kehoe, for being on with us, and to the always entertaining Scott Warman for joining us from St. Louis. Also, I'd like to end this show by thanking a few people outside our guests. A heartfelt thanks to all of our medical professionals in and around the state that are fighting the coronavirus each and every day. Thank you to the delivery drivers that keep the country and the state going. And finally, a thank you to our coworkers here at Mediacom, the techs and installers and call center personnel who are still working each and every day to make sure that your cable and internet continue to work through some of the highest usage numbers we've ever seen, with so many people staying, studying, and working from home. Until next time, for our MC22 crew, I'm Corey Riggs, saying so long from the studio.